You got your recorder on? Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody out. Appreciate you joining us. We've got a few things we want to talk about today. This is the Royse City Council meeting for February 18th, 2020. We do have Councilmember Saxton with us today, Councilmember Burrell with us today, Councilmember Jackson, Councilmember Paul, and I do believe we have Councilmember Wilson on the line. Is that right? Okay, so we've got her electronically. By the way, I think she's calling in from India. So, appreciate that dedication. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I got him. Oh, is she in Nepal? Okay, close enough. We've asked, just next to it, I mean, thanks for the clarification. We've asked Councilmember Jackson if she'll go ahead and lead us in a moment of silence and also the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Could you please, silence, can you please have a moment of silence? Thank you. Can you please stand, but repeat the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, Council, we have a couple of consent items. We do need to table the February 4th, 2020 Royse City Council meeting minutes, in large part because we don't have those and they weren't in your packet to review. So we'll table that. And we do have the approval of an alcohol beverage license at the KSK Quick Stop located at 3971 South, 1900 West. Any comments or questions or anything about the alcohol beverage license?
Is that a renewal?
Is this a renewal, do you know?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the consent items.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's approved. Thank you. We do have some action items. Matt, you're going to lead off with the discussion about the new fire chief, and then council, we need to do a review and consent. I'll talk to you about what that is, but Matt, please.
Yeah, as mayor and council, as you guys know, we've been actively looking for a new fire chief for Royse City. We had 11 candidates, all very, very qualified. One in particular kept on standing out to the committee. We did some further testing, talking to people about the individual, and comes out that he was a very recognized member in the fire community. Could we have Craig come up? Craig Golden, he comes with a tremendous amount of experience. He has a large history in military, to being a chief in England, to being a deputy chief up at Hillfield. He knows his stuff, so I would recommend the approval of his employment here.
Okay, questions, comments, council? Okay, this is a review and consent. Council, do I have a motion then to approve Craig Golden to be the new fire chief? Need a motion?
I motion that we approve for
Okay,
him to be the new fire chief. I've heard nothing but great things about you.
I'll second that.
thank you. I don't think this is a roll call. I think it's just up or down. Is that right, Andy?
That's right.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing none. Okay, the council approves it. I do believe now we're going to have the recorder go ahead and do the swearing in. So Craig, you would?
I just want to know if he's ready for that motley crew.
Excited. Maybe not ready.
I state your name,
I, Craig Gould,
having been elected or appointed
as she's an elected appointment
to the office of fire chief,
to the office of fire chief,
do solemnly swear or affirm
solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Greg, if you wouldn't mind then, if you have family here, would you mind pointing those out for us?
I think I got the first 3 rows right here.
Okay.
And if you're not part of the family, you can be. So, yeah,
Okay.
my
You gotta
wife
share
is-
who's
My
here.
wife is Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
I got some cousins here in the front row, Tiffany and Valerie, sister-in-law Judy, her grandkids, my mother-in-law Janice, Stephanie, niece, my son Zach, the burly-looking one, my daughter-in-law Amy, my other daughter Erin here sitting there, and then my other son Hayden. So
Okay.
all
Okay.
doing well here. So
Well, welcome.
Well,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
Thank you for joining us.
I think we might all take everybody with us. Is that all right? Thanks.
Take that back row too, please.
Take your whole family now.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we'll give them a second to go ahead if they would like to stay or leave. Okay. It's great to see the support from the fire department with us tonight. Council, we have Resolution 20-6 approving agreement with Aqua Environmental Services. I believe Brandon's going to talk this. Thanks, Brandon.
All right, like you said, I'm here tonight for Resolution 20-6 approval of an agreement with Aqua Environmental Services Incorporated for sewer lift station grinder project. And whatever questions you guys have, I can answer them.
How about you explain that?
Yeah, like, what is that?
I have a gut feeling what it is, but give us
Okay,
a
so
technical-
It's a
Our-
gut feeling.
Our lift station down there, as you guys probably know, our sewer runs into a lift station, which pumps it into a North Davis line. And we're having a real issue with like wet wipes and stuff like that getting in our pumps and binding them up and taking them out. So these grinders will be placed before them and grind up everything before it sends through the pumps to try and help get some life out of our pumps.
In our sewer board meeting last week, they talked about that, flushable wipes.
Mhm,
May
yeah.
pass the toilet, but that's about where they pass.
Yeah.
It's been in the news a lot recently. It's been on the,
They're not, no good.
Other comments, questions, council? Okay,
Sounds like
Mayor, I
something
make a
really-
motion, we approve Resolution 20-6, an agreement with Aqua Environmental Services for a sewer lift station grinders project.
okay, I
second
have a
that.
motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson. Aye. Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thanks, Brandon. It's always easy on the first two, isn't it? Thank you. Council, we have a conversation that deals with the continuation of Ordinance 20-1, the amendment to the Title 10. Basically, this, although it's not clearly stated, this one deals with the fencing and screening. Steve, I think you're going to guide us through this conversation.
Well, I know this has been tabled twice. The first time was October 15th of 2019, and then sometime in January. So So it's just a continuation. I can answer any questions you may have on the ordinance, or I can go back through it if you would like.
Okay, council, this was, as you may remember, just to refresh, this is the one that basically started with the assisted living on 5600. And we were working through this to try to find some solutions. There was a discussion that came out of Planning Commission that suggested is that the current ordinance was somewhat ambiguous. As a result of that, the Planning Commission made some recommendations. You should have seen those recommendations in front of you in terms of what's being proposed by the Planning Commission. I'll just remind you, you literally have three options. You can basically leave it alone, reject the recommendations and leave it as is. You can change the recommendations provided by the Planning Commission, or you can simply go ahead and approve as written what the Planning Commission has provided. So those are the three options. Let me just indicate the urgency of trying to find some answer to this question. Because this particular issue borders or addresses the issue of bordering both residential and commercial properties, there is a discussion taking place. There has been conversation about providing a new assisted living facility, and there's also a conversation with Arby's wanting to come down on 4,000. Both of these properties will in fact border a residential. And so it's imperative that we try to find some solution to this from the council in terms of directing the city what they want to do. I believe the comment that Steve will provide would be is, the best they can tell any developer at this moment would be is, because it's in the process, you're just going to have to be flexible until the city council decides. That will only go so far, because at some point in time, that developer will have to present to the city a site plan, and the Planning Commission will have to approve that site plan, which I will assume will include a fencing or screening operation around those businesses. And so in this case, we just need the city council to decide what you want to do. So with that, we'll open up the conversation. Council, comments?
One of the issues we have, Mayor, with this ordinance, the ambiguity we had was the uses. We looked at, do you look at uses versus looking at ordinance, or zoning, I should say. So we have, you can have an assisted living center in an R3, R4, or you can have it in a community commercial. It's permitted in both. Table of use would say whatever the use is what you go off of. Ordinance would say whatever the ordinance for zoning is what you'd go off of. So I would propose that we remove the table of use from that and say whatever the ordinance reads in zoning between two zones, that's what we go off of. And so whatever we adopt tonight for screening between residential and non-residential, whatever the zoning is what we would go off of, not what the use of the property is.
Okay, so with that then, you're suggesting that we choose either have it in a residential or we have it in a commercial? One or the other, but not both.
Well,
think Steve has a
regardless of
comment
what
on
the
that.
use is, you're going off of what we choose, the screening for the zoning.
Okay, comment. Right now it reads, just so you understand, it reads both. It allows both of these options to take place. You can actually put it in a residential, and also you can put it in a community commercial. So either way.
And what I'm saying is regardless of where you put it, you make your screening based on zoning.
And just, I'll kind of
Okay.
go over, again, that's kind of what this change was looking at. Instead of it being a use or a zone, when you look at, and I'll try to get there as quickly as, 10-10-31 is where the ambiguity of use versus zone came in. And so what the Planning Commission is looking at is, okay, we'll remove item, or section 1 and 2 out of that, replace it with that table. It says, okay, your setbacks 15, 20, 25, or 30, you're having a masonry wall, vinyl fence, or what have you, and then landscaping requirements on there.
Say
So-
where that again is, Steve. I'm sorry.
Which part?
Well, you said it's in 1010,
10-10-31, isn't it?
10-10-30, as long as green.
31-1.
10, Yeah, Title 10, Chapter 10, Section 31.
And there's a screening walls, which is number 2, and I think he's proposing, or the proposal looks as chapter, or paragraph 3 as well.
And so I'm going to continue my proposal of, okay, we get rid of the use and we go off of the zoning. My proposal is going to continue that we have a minimum setback of 20 feet between residential and non-residential zones. And between 20 and 30 feet, it has to be a solid substrate, which I would propose masonry, concrete. Beyond 30, you can have vinyl, wood, but I'm not proposing any landscape screening, because landscape screening is only as good as the people that maintain it. If we're looking at canopy trees in the wintertime, there's not leaves on canopy trees. You do have evergreens, but trees die, landscaping comes and goes. I would propose that minimum 20 feet setback, 6 foot, solid wall. Beyond 30, you can go vinyl or wood. That's my proposal.
And then just put rocks down.
Well, if you have a 20-foot setback, you would have a 10-foot landscaping buffer, but you still have the screen wall.
Okay, I think I understand what's going on.
Steve, I have one more question about that too. It went from 6 feet, I mean, it said 6 to 8 feet, and then we cut out the up to 8 feet. Is that because of Utah code? Is it-
Which part?
The
Well,
height of fencing.
Height
The
of
height
fencing,
of
that was
fencing.
removed like 2017, 2016. Right. Not
so it
recently.
doesn't ever allow for anything over 6 foot?
currently, no.
Correct.
I think some of our residential people would like that reinstated, but.
Diane, you have a comment? Put her on the microphone if you can get her close to it.
You're good.
To clarify the 20-foot setback, and are you proposing any foliage within that 20-foot?
No, I'm
area?
proposing minimum building setback from property line as 20 feet.
With no plant foliage or?
No, you would have a,
20 foot?
you would have a 10-foot buffer, regardless of what the wall is, you would have a 10-foot landscape buffer.
Is that in addition to the 20-foot or part of the 20-foot?
It's part of the 20-foot.
Okay, thank you. And then in regards to the 8-foot wall requirement, in the old code, did that require a building permit and engineering as well? I know many cities require 8 foot between commercial and non-commercial. Is that something that we would still need to require engineering and?
Yeah, and I'm not
Yeah,
putting
8
it 8 foot into my proposal. I'm still sticking with 6 foot maximum height from highest part of variation in property.
Just to clarify, the zoning ordinance doesn't state either or, it's the building code that dictates when a building permit is required on the height of a fence. So that's nothing we have control over. If you allow an 8-foot fence, a building permit will be required for both vinyl, chain link, masonry, wood.
But it's possible.
Well, building code says yes. Zoning right now doesn't allow for anything above 6.
Which I'm proposing
And
we
if-
stay with 6.
In regards to some of the elevation changes and requirements, I can see where an 8-foot could be beneficial. Because most people are gonna want to just do a 6-foot because of cost. But is there a big problem just allowing up to an 8-foot if we do have an elevation issue? Because then that could definitely save some other privacy issues.
I'm saying 6 foot on highest point of property. So if 2 properties abut each other and one's higher, it would be 6 foot from the highest property point.
And that portion hasn't changed. This ordinance
And
doesn't
what if-
change that.
But I think
How would that affect
what
this?
Diane is suggesting is that she's suggesting is consideration should be given for 8 feet.
I would agree
Just an
with that,
option, as an option.
as an option.
Now, it used to be,
Because-
prior to March 17th of 2017,
Right.
the decision was is that that had to have approval if it was above 8 feet or there was some element of that. So
I think
maybe
between
what you
6
could
and 8.
do to suggest is that anything above 6 feet, if you want to come to some solution, then it requires planning commission approval, and that will be
I'm
approved
fine
with the
with
site
that.
plan.
I would say planning commission and council
sounds good.
approval.
Go
Question
ahead.
though, does that include a resident versus a resident? So if I want to put my fence between me and my neighbor at an 8-foot fence, I have to come to planning commission for approval?
I'm
No,
only
I-
talking between residential and non-residential.
Absolutely. This code is only residential and non-residential, is my understanding, right?
That's the focus. The focus is the
Right.
joint fencing, screening that takes place between a residential and a non-residential.
Absolutely, yes.
So if what I'm hearing you say is, let's see if we can find some agreement on this, and then we'll see if we can go for a motion. But what I'm hearing you say is that some of you are at least considering, I would allow then up to 8 feet or higher based on, that it's between a residential and non-residential, and that requires planning commission or city council approval. Because somebody
Yes,
has to
and-
approve it if you go
That
above
sounds
6
good.
feet. What do you recommend?
If it's gonna go above 6 feet, I'd like to see it come back to us.
I'd be fine with that. I want to give them a possible option.
Because it would depend on
I
the
agree.
business that was going in there too.
Well, here's the key. The key would be is the site plan approval is a planning commission function. So if a proposal was coming in, I'll use the RB solution for an example. If the RVs come in on 4,000, which is being considered, and you put it in there next to a residential, then there will have to be a proposed site plan that should identify the height of the fence between those properties.
If they
It's the
say 6
developer's
feet-
choice, not
Right, if
the
they
other
say-
property owner's choice, though.
And if they say 6 foot and the planning commission approves it, I'm fine with that.
Okay?
But if they say, no, we want 8 foot because we want to appease our neighbors and make it more private, then it would have to be approved here. Is
Okay,
that
so
what I'm
you're-
understanding?
You're proposing, well, it don't have to be. It can be approved if you want to use that at the planning commission. But the key would be is you're allowing that in the statute to say, yes, we can allow an 8-foot fence. The key would be is, do you want somebody to approve it or not? If you're saying if you put it in there, then it's anywhere from 4 feet to 8 feet. If you want somebody to approve
Why is
that.
it 4 feet? Where's the 4
Well,
feet?
there'll be some elements on fences that when it comes up to a street along the sides that you got to be careful not to allow that fence to be too high so it blocks view. So there'll be
Right.
conditions.
The side
It's also-
triangle.
But that's not, that doesn't have to do with where it butts up to the neighboring, right?
Well, it could. Yeah,
Well,
even the provision within this policy basically says that 6 feet. Let me
Yeah,
read
it
it to you.
does. I read it.
Yep, the 48
I know what it
inches.
says.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So the question, really what it comes down to, if you'd like to see about 8 foot, if you say 8 foot needs to be approved, then the question is, who do you want to approve that? And if the answer is you allow that to planning commission, then the planning commission, as part of the site plan approval, then would approve a 6 foot or 8 foot fence. If you're saying, I'd rather have that done at the city council level, then we got to make some major changes to the ordinance that puts that responsibility here.
And you'll need a double approval then if you come with.
Yeah, it would have to come through the planning commission and that recommendation.
And that's the developer's choice to go that high. It's not the abutting property owner's choice. I don't know that you're ever gonna get a developer that says, oh, I'm gonna put up a higher fence. You may, but.
And again, as Andy had indicated, me personally prefer the if you left it with the planning commission. Because if I'm a developer, I have to go to planning commission for site plan approval. I want an 8-foot fence, now I gotta wait 1 to 3 weeks beyond just to get approval for an 8-foot fence. Time is always money. If I can get approval from planning commission and start building versus having to wait another month.
I'm probably fine with that, but I do think we ought to give them the option of having an 8-foot fence if they want it. Just because, for the very reason of privacy,
Okay,
regardless of whether
Minimum
it's
of
the
6,
business.
minimum of 6, though.
Minimum 6,
Unless
minimum
bordering a
6,
street.
but
like you said.
possibility of up to 8.
Is somebody wordsmithing all this? Because
I'm
he's writing it down. I've been watching him. Okay, so here's what I think we've got so far. Let's make sure we're on the same path.
Go ahead.
Diane,
I
go
have one
ahead.
more question. I just want to make sure that this addresses the elevation issue that they had at the assisted living. You know how the assisted living put that property line?
Highest point
It
of-
said from the
berm,
highest point.
But the berm, they put that berm back 1 foot. So that, technically, they could have just left a 6-foot fence there, and it would have just been 2 feet above their property line. And I just wanted to make sure that at least we have options to try to avoid a problem with
So
the
then you state
technicality
on
like this.
property line. Highest elevation on property line?
Yeah,
Does
there's a
that cover
provision
that?
right now, Steve, under screen walls, it says, B, where there's a difference in elevation on opposite sides of the wall, the height of the required wall shall be measured from the highest
Yeah, the
elevation.
planning commission wasn't looking to amend that.
Okay.
They left that portion in,
So that would
So
stay
it would go from
intact.
the highest point.
that property line, yes.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the only other piece that I heard, and let's make sure we get that clear before we go for a motion, I heard 20 feet versus the 15 feet. So there's a minimum being proposed, that there's a minimum of 20 feet between the wall or the fence, vinyl fence or wall, because I think your comment wall, 20 feet to the
From 20 to
facility.
30 feet, I'm saying it has to be solid, whether it's concrete, block, whatever, solid.
Okay.
Beyond 30, it can be vinyl or wood with a minimum of 6 foot. But no partial screening and no landscape screening. I still want the 10-foot landscape buffer if you're under 30 feet.
Okay, comments on that thought?
I'm fine with that.
Me too. I think it has to be at least 20
Brian?
feet, not 15.
Why are we ditching the landscape if it's the best option? Meaning, are we gonna look like the Flintstones with all these brick walls? And I'm asking.
Well, I mean, you look at trees die over time.
Right.
They're not fully engulfed in the wintertime, and how people maintain them. I've went and drove around and looked at different places where they've used landscape buffers. Some have looked nice, and some, I wouldn't want to live on the other side of it because they've let them degrade and go downhill.
Was that decision up to the developer to put the landscape in, or that's,
Well,
It would.
He'd put them in, but
we have to
it'd be
maintain it?
the property owner that would be responsible for maintaining, right?
And how long does it take for them to grow to full maturity before you're actually getting the screening?
I don't think they should be used as a screener. They might be
Yeah.
used as a beautification,
Okay.
but I don't know about as a screener. That to me doesn't make sense. that
Yeah,
they're
that's
used
why I
as a
propose we
screener.
do away with the part that says you can use trees for landscape screening.
Okay?
Yeah, just for
Diane,
beautification, not for
You want to make a
screening.
comment? I read some of your stuff in the paper you sent.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I believe that the issues have basically been addressed. I think the landscaping is nice for beautification, and it eventually will provide some sort of a buffer, but to use it as a fence, I don't think is appropriate. And then if we have too narrow of an area, we have to be careful because we have so much overgrowth. So as long as that 10-foot landscape area has some foliage in it for beautification as well as buffer, I think that's fine. And my understanding is that Councilmember Paul has inserted 10 foot of that 20 foot to be landscaped.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That keeps them from putting a parking lot right on your fence line.
Right.
Right.
But they can't put the parking lot even up to 20 feet is my understanding. You can't have a parking lot up to 20 foot because it's a 20-foot setback, right?
To building.
Setback to building.
Right.
That's why you put in the 10-foot landscape buffer to keep them from putting a parking lot right up to your fence.
Okay, so you could have from 10 foot to 20 foot, you could have a driveway or a parking lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, unless you want to leave in a portion that was taken out that says that you have to leave a 10-foot buffer. Here's what it says. I'll read it to you.
1031, number 2.
Yeah. It specifically says, "No off-street parking, driveways, access, or any hard surfaces areas shall be permitted and located within a required 10 feet landscape buffer area."
That's
See,
what I'm
that's what you're
proposing.
leaving.
That's what
Okay.
he's saying.
Mayor, which number was that?
That's sitting in 10-10-31-3, screening landscape. We just need to add that back in there, not take that out. Okay, is everybody, I think I heard what you're saying. Everybody okay, so if we can kind of sum this together and maybe go with a motion? Okay, here's what I hear. What we're saying is that, I'm gonna use the chart, minimum yard setback, back and side would be 20 to 30 feet, minimum 10-foot landscape buffer. Basically, it will be a masonry. Diane, you made a comment that says precast concrete walls. I've seen them. They are very effective as long as they don't have that styrofoam filler in it. You're proposing that one as well, I think.
Yes, and if that fits into solid substrate, or if that's decorative masonry, just as long as that is part of it. A lot of businesses are using that. It's equal in cost and definitely much more beautiful, beautification friendly.
And definitely stronger, okay? So it can go, using the comment, 20 to 30 feet. If you're in the 20 to 30 foot setback, you use a masonry 6-foot minimum up to 8 feet. 8 feet approval will be where? You okay with the
Planning
planning
commission.
commission?
I'm fine with that being
Okay.
the planning commission.
There will be landscape and buffer. You can use the required plant units per 100 feet you've got laid out. I think that's a pretty good layout
Actually,
in
I
that
think
10
that's
feet
a
landscape
good
buffer.
layout.
I don't think, his layout deals with landscape screening, not landscape buffer.
Comment?
Yeah, we
Is
wanna be
there
careful.
already a proposed what landscape buffer consists of?
The current ordinance just says 10-foot landscape buffer adjacent to, and doesn't say
Anything.
what that has to be in it.
Yeah. You want to leave it to the discretion of the individual? Could be grass, could be bushes, could be trees. What do you want to do?
Yeah, landscape buffer.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. I don't
Okay.
think we have to tell them
I
what
mean-
it is.
I mean, some trees would be nice, but we just don't want overkill on the property owners, the residents'
I don't think we
property.
require it.
Okay.
If they want to put some in, they'll do what they want to do.
And then
Okay.
30 and beyond,
30 and beyond will be vinyl, solid, both solid, 6 foot, and with whatever landscape buffering materials they want to
yeah,
use.
no chain link, no slats.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Mayor, is this something that you'd prefer us to come back with an ordinance that's included all that? Because we're gonna have to.
You tell us, Steve.
I mean, I think I've got it, and
Okay.
I can re-listen to the audio minutes to make sure I've got everything, but if you want, I can bring it back just as is this what you really said?
Okay.
How prohibitive is that with our people that are currently waiting to
It means we
develop?
can't
Is
see
that
this
gonna cause a
until 2 more
problem?
weeks.
Well, one of them doesn't have a site plan in yet, and one does.
So we got one in.
So this would be fine.
Okay, then I don't think
They
it
were fine
matters.
with the other one as well, so.
So I think it would be fine.
I mean,
to
if you
come back
want to
approval.
wordsmith it in your next, and then bring it back to us in 2 weeks, I'm
Okay.
okay with that.
Do me one favor with you would. 10,
Oh, Steve,
go ahead.
No, my only concern is, I mean, we could adopt the ordinance that's proposed with those changes.
With the changes as written, yeah.
And that kind
And then
of-
they can solidify.
That's actually the motion I would like to make,
Okay.
is we adopt the ordinance with the changes that were discussed
That's fine.
tonight.
Okay,
I'd second that.
then make that proposal.
Go ahead, Joe.
That's what I thought I just did. So I make a motion, we accept the ordinances with the changes that were discussed tonight.
I'll
Okay,
second that.
and there's a second. This is a roll call vote. Now, do I need a public comment period in the middle of this?
No.
Okay, then go ahead. Roll call.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Do me one favor, Steve. 10-10-36. You'll need to look at line C on that. This one deals with requirements and walls in general, so it's in the 10-36, not the one that differentiates
And
that.
the point
but-
where we removed uses.
But you probably need to look at
it's
that, okay?
On zoning.
And that's 10-10-31 where it talks about
See, solid site
zone
obscuring.
districts and then
Right.
zone uses, so.
That's right. It's the other one, requirements for walls, so we don't have any ambiguity between that. That's the one that deals with walls in general or fences. Okay. Thank you. Okay. This,
Could you just make sure they're putting shall be instead of maybe? The mayor had said, part of the ordinance said maybe instead of shall be, just say shall be.
Did you catch that, Steve?
Where's that?
The mayor just referenced that it says, it would say maybe, but it needs to say shall be.
Thank
Is
you.
that correct?
yeah, there's a comment,
Where is that?
Well, it says
I'll share that with you.
I need 3.
Thanks.
This one goes to the height issue. It says the fence or wall located along the property line with a grade difference, the fence or wall may be erected to the maximum height, fence height permitted by the highest grade of the property line.
Shall be.
And the question which should be, it should be shall be. So that if they got budding property lines and one happens to be a little lower than the other one, then it's not maybe they will in fact
Put
do
a
that,
6
it will
foot.
shall be. Yeah, because what it says
It
right now,
shall.
it says the fence and wall located along the property line with a grade difference, the fence or wall may be erected.
You want it shall be.
And we want to make sure it shall be.
Thou shalt.
I think that's what you're hearing. Okay,
Do we need another motion on that, Andy? Okay.
The mayor had mentioned that in there, and in the motion, he said, with the changes that you
Okay.
discussed.
Okay.
you okay with that? We'll work with Steve and fine tune that to get that done. Hey, thank you. We got an approval. Public comment. Anything you'd like to talk about on any topic, please step up to the mic. Just give us your name and address.
Howdy. My name's Austin Gonzalez. I live at 5382 South, 2000 West. This is just a comment for the record. As a continuation of the discussion about the rezoning, I would like my parcel to be included with the downtown mixed use. To reiterate, the properties next to me that are currently high occupancy have been included. I'm currently zoned as high occupancy. I would also like to be included. That's my comment.
Yeah, and Steve, we know where that's at. And so it's just a property that butts, that he just wants to extend that
understand that.
property in terms of this plan, just a little bit further north into his property.
Right.
Okay?
Because I'm not currently a single family in terms of zoning, so it makes sense to include me.
Okay?
Thank you, Austin.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay?
So my name, Robert Mallory, and I live at 2817 West, 6000 South, and thank you for letting me address you tonight. I'd just like to talk about the sidewalks or lack of sidewalks in Roy. And there's 2 sections. One is the 3100 West, so starting at 6000 South, if you go down to 5900 South, there's no sidewalk on either side. That's just not acceptable. The other one is 5725 South and east to 2775 West. Both sides, there's no sidewalk. Now, you did put in sidewalk on 5725 South going west, and I appreciate that. So on that side, the kids are not walking in the street. But on the other side, the kids are still walking in the street.
And that's the east side?
Going east,
Going
yes.
east.
Mhm.
Isn't there one of those that the property owner didn't want the sidewalk in front of their house?
Yes, but we kind of had to push that one because of public safety. That's the reason why that was on the west side, but
Yes, and.
but
and
there's
on-
also one on the east side that didn't want it. Yeah.
And on the 3100, I use that road and I walk that road. So when I don't drive, I'll walk, and I want to walk to church on Sunday. I have to walk in the street. And during the summer, that's fine, because I just walk on people's lawns. But during the winter, the snow piles up, and I walk in the street. 3100, as you know, is getting more traffic.
Right.
In fact, we've had accidents down on 6,000, 3,100. But people are having to walk in the street with more traffic.
Isn't that where the eventual, never mind, I'm not gonna use that word.
Well, I know 6,000, you have a plan on 6,000, I think, maybe extending on the
I'll let somebody
north
else
side.
use that word.
But it's just ironic because yearly I go to the road department in Roy on 2700, and they say there's no money in the budget. I understand that. The next year's no money in the budget, I understand that, and next year, no, next year. But on 5700, we've had a calming circle put in, and then we had a calming circle taken out. Now we have speed, not bumps, but speed humps put in the road, and there's 3 of those, with 6 signs, which costs money also. I don't know where that money came from, but they have sidewalks, so they can walk on the sidewalk to go to church or go to school or wherever they want to go. So my question maybe to the council tonight is, do we have a city planner? Do you have a plan? And can you convey that maybe in,
Right
and
now?
I love your newsletters that come out in that booklet for Roy. But let us know. Tell us that in the past 40 years, there's no sidewalk on 3100 in that section. But is there a plan in the next 40 years to put it in? 5 years, 2 years?
We
Please.
have a plan Bob's asking for, and we'll share that plan here in a second. But yes, I think we got an answer for you tonight.
Great.
And I think your other point you're bringing up is we need to put it in the magazine, because it's not just you, it's everybody else that ought to know. So we'll put that in there. There was an approval. I think Steve can articulate that better than I can, but it has been approved to put that in there. We're taking some funds from
I know on
Wasatch Region.
3100 West, we actually have a grant coming to help
Right.
provide, I want to say more than half of the money to install sidewalks for safe routes to school. I can't remember if it's 2021 or 2022 when that grant comes in, but it is in the works to happen. So
Wow, you made me happy.
And it's gonna go from 6,000, I think, right now, I think it's going all the way to 48,
Yeah.
and it may all go all the way to Midland. We're still working that piece of it, but Bob, it's gonna be perfect. I know exactly where you're talking about, and it's always risk, but there's a plan to put sidewalks on the street. I don't know how the homeowners will like it, but the grant will pay to have that put in. We're pretty
When you
excited
think
about
of
that.
kids and people, to me, I'm sorry, it takes priority over what their feelings are.
Exactly.
Well,
And
thanks
they
for
do have
letting
to
me talk
shovel
tonight.
within 12
Yeah,
hours.
they have to shovel their walks.
Then you have to shovel, that's right. But hey, Bob, we'll get the details on that and put that in the magazine so everybody able to read it. But I do know the grant was submitted and approved. We're just waiting for whether it was a 2021 or 2022 funding, and we'll find that answer. Okay, great, good comment. Anybody else like to share a thought with us? Please, just name and address.
Dr. Amy Buckway, and I live at 4863 South, 2700 West. And so I just was making sure that you got my letters, and then my signature's good, because we're opposed to the development they're making across the street at 5125 South, 2700 West.
I don't think that's being voted on tonight.
Is
That's,
it not tonight?
We're looking at the end of March for that.
End of March?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm here prematurely to say that I'm very opposed to
You're
that.
welcome to join us anytime.
hey, you can always talk up.
Okay, well, and he's got my letters, so I'm good to go, so thank you. Hey, question about, what are the chances of us getting a viaduct on 4800? Is that in the works at all? Or, because there had been a discussion about no left turn at 4800 on 2700. When is that coming about, or is that coming?
The challenge we have, just to give you an idea, 4,800, much like 4,000, much like 6,000, are city-owned roads. And a viaduct, although we feel this exactly really important, is so expensive. The proposal they're proposing, just widening right now on 5,600, UDOT is saying they own 5,600, is a little over $70 million. That's probably three or four times our general plan, our general funds. The city just doesn't have that kind of money. If we were to make an agreement with UDOT and turn that into a state road, then I think the state would have the deep pockets to address that. But here's what we do know. There is a proposal. It got delayed because the state had to go to federal and had to do an environmental assessment, the last word I heard, on 4800. But we hope to get that going this year. But Matt, 56 is
4800 's
waiting.
still-
But 48,
doing
right
away
there
with
where the
that.
train station is, or train tracks and that 2700 intersects, that whole thing is going to be redone because they declared that as being one of the most unsafe roads in the state. It's that serious.
Rail crossings.
It's just a terrible crossing the way it's designed. And we were waiting, it was supposed to start this last year, but they found to get federal funds, they had to get special approval. And we were waiting then for them to get the approval, but it's not only the city, but it's UDOT, it's the train station. There's a lot of people involved in this, but we got a solution. We just got to get the federal funding to do that.
And that would do away with that left-hand turn that you're talking about. As you're going west, you would not be able to turn left onto 2700. You'd have to hit the roundabout, come back up, and make a right turn.
Kind of a bugger for me, but that road it's dangerous there, and it seems like that crossing is always malfunctioning, so it always makes me.
One of the other things it does is it opens up 2675 for a left-hand turn going north as you cross the train tracks going east. So, which there's a lot of people that didn't like it when that got cut off.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Matt, do you have any more to add to that? Do you have any more updates on that?
Union Pacific was one of the issues that they kept on holding things up. But yeah, we're hoping this year, but we'll see. Like Mayor said, it was already prolonged last time, so.
Yeah, we'll try to get you a better answer, and we'll try to get this in the magazine so everybody can read about it, okay? Okay, anybody else like to share a thought with us? Okay, we don't bite. Glenda?
Glenda Moore, 2088 West, 3825 South, Roy. A while back, on Facebook, you said, Mayor, that you would have published somewhere on the Roy City website the list of accomplishments that had happened in 2018 and 2019, and this is either a nudge or where is it?
That's a good question. I have them all, I just haven't published them on Facebook, or I probably put those on the city websites. I seen the ones you had.
Put it in the article, put it in the Roy Connection magazine.
And
too.
we could put it in there. There's so many accomplishments that has been done. I've got a full page on 2018 alone, and I'll bet you I almost got a full page on 2019. So there's a lot of things going on. We'll try to get that onto the city website, but I'm not sure how I can get all that in unless I break this up into a couple of pieces into the magazine, because it'll take a lot of space. But yes, I've got all the list. It's pretty impressive, okay? A lot of movement. Let me see what we can do in terms of getting that posted so the public can read that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I may add something, just got a message from a birdie listening in on the meeting. They're hoping May for the railroad crossing on 4800.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Okay, anybody else like to share a thought? Okay, we'll go out of public comment period. We do have one discussion item we'd like to talk about, and it deals with the form-based code strategy and projected timeline. What I'd like to do is just preface that to make sure we understand what we will be trying to do in this discussion and what we won't do tonight. What we will not do tonight is make any decisions in terms of firming up the form-based code. This is going to take a little time to work through, some parts of this more than others, but we're going to discuss that, but we're not going to approve the form-based code tonight. To do that would require us to probably put some announcement and have a public comment period, but that could easily have happened in the next couple of meetings on the business side, the district issue that we're talking about. So it's just an open conversation. Matt, why don't you start us off, and let's have a conversation about this.
So really the intent of putting this on the agenda isn't to really discuss into detail the form-based code. But however, the last city council meeting, it was unanimous that we split this code with the downtown versus down there by the train station versus the Iomega complex. We just wanted to, now that it's officially the council, we wanted to make sure that we're heading in that right direction so we can give staff the direction to officially split that document. By splitting it, what it's going to allow is have discussion going on for the downtown district, and then discussions later going on about the other areas. We haven't gotten a lot of feedback on the downtown, and so we feel like we could get going on that. So I asked you as council members, is that still what you're intending on doing?
So I would propose that we separate that into 3 distinct areas: downtown, the innovative district, and the train station. And
3 areas.
Three areas. Based on the input we've received from the public, most of the concern is at the train station. I think that's where we need to spend our most time, have maybe some public meetings, some work sessions. Haven't heard too much about the innovative district, but I know the downtown, with the way things are moving and some developers that want to come in, I would propose that we move on that faster than later, maybe even next council meeting, be able to vote on the downtown district. But definitely, I propose we separate it into 3 distinct areas.
Comment on that, council? What you're basically saying, so there's no confusion, we have the downtown business district, we have the innovation center, which really is the industrial centers out where the iOmega is, out by the airport, and then you got the train station. So what I'm hearing is we want to break that into 3 separate entities and treat them separately.
Mayor, I have a comment on that.
Please.
Now, the planning commission, though, did they recommend 2 separate?
Yeah, they talked about recommending splitting it to 2.
Okay, so we can, if their recommendation is 2, we can take that recommendation, and then when we're at the council meeting, if you want to approve part of it first, we can approve that part first. Move on with the others
Okay.
later.
Okay, thoughts on that, council?
I'm confused in what you're saying.
When I listened to the planning commission minutes, it sounded like they were talking about splitting up innovation from, I believe that Don Ashby said split innovation from Station Park. Not that we can't postpone it, that's fine. The other comment I have is I strongly recommend that we do not proceed quite that rapidly with downtown. We really definitely need another meeting or two, or several, or, a few meetings on downtown, maybe not as many, but to push it, vote to next council meeting, I think would be premature. Those are my comments.
Okay, council? Comments?
Well, we can go with the split
Yes.
currently, and I like Joe's actually recommendation of 3 versus 2. So I'm not sure what you were saying, Andy.
Well, and you can do that, but what I'm saying is the planning commission is sending over a recommendation. So we'll take that recommendation and then we can act on that and we can split it.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we do that now?
But, well, we've got to have that recommendation in front of us. We can't take a formal action on it right now. So we'll put that on at our next meeting.
This at least gives me direction of what I need to do, so I'll start
Separated into
separating
3
things
distinct
from it.
districts.
So when we come back, you'll have just downtown and nothing else within it. You can discuss and go forward with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll be able to.
Now, council, I mentioned to you that in the next meeting then, the March 3rd meeting, what I'd like to do is present a resolution to establish a form-based code ad hoc committee. We talked about that briefly. We do have a number of residents and people who own property down at the train station. And what we'd like to do is canvass a bunch of them and see if in fact we can get 8 or 10 people who would like to join us as part of the ad hoc committee, and then try to look at how best we can structure the train station area in terms of under this form-based code, what changes we think we can do and what we might be able to do, and then have the ad hoc committee basically come back and we'll present that back to the city council. And so what I'd like to do is we'll just bring a resolution to you next week to establish that ad hoc committee and put that together. And then what I think I just heard is we do have the March 3rd meeting, but we also have the March 17th. I'm sensing that maybe you guys may want to, Joe Paul's suggesting that we basically may be ready to go ahead and look at a vote on the March 3rd. I heard other comment that talked about maybe a vote on March 17th.
If it's got to come back from Steve, I think I'm okay with March 17th.
Okay. Brian?
And that's
gives us-
just a split, that's all that is.
No, so I think we can vote on the 3rd to split it, but I think vote to accept the downtown to be March 17th.
But we may go ahead and couple a workshop on the 3rd, or at least do something to try to get, because I'm sensing from Diane's comment, she would like to have a little more dialogue and more discussion about downtown before you go for a vote. Now, that's really the issue. So, comments?
Well, I know you want to get moving on it because we have people interested in starting.
I think another month, the 17th, if we could vet through the process in the next month to vote on the downtown.
If I can, I won't be here on the 3rd, our consultant won't be here on the 3rd, so if you discuss it, you won't have anybody here that knows the code.
So it's gonna
like we
still
do,
delay it
so.
even a little bit more.
And it will take some
That's
time
fine.
to split it, so.
I think that's fine, I think that gives us more time to
Maybe you
study.
present it on the 17th, we can discuss it and then vote it on the next one.
I think we need to split it, but I brought this up earlier. I don't know that we need a form-based code down by the train station. I think we could use a traditional, a zone so that we can respond to these people's wants and desires who live around it. And so my thinking is if we split it, then we can move forward with the property at City Center, and we can work out the details around the train station with an existing code. Because nobody down there wants, 3-story, 4-story apartment buildings, 3-story.
I think that's the concern people have had, is not so much the form-based code as the height of the buildings. They saw 5-6 stories and said, no, we don't want that. And I agree with that. I don't see a problem with form-based code, and that's one of the things, if UTA ever does develop their property, if we can do a form-based code, that tells them what they can develop and what they can do. You just put in whatever you want our maximum heights to be, whether it's 2-story or 3-story, in that form-based code. I think from all the people I've talked to, they're hesitant with form-based code is they just look at the stories of the building. There's a lot more parts of form-based code that I don't know that is being evaluated.
But if we currently split it, let's say we split it for whatever reason.
Okay.
We don't have to decide what's going on near the train station. We don't have to do it in the next month. We don't have to do it in the next 2 months or in the next 4 months. But we could move forward with what we call our downtown area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. You've got.
I would like to comment. I actually agree with what Brian has to say immensely. I believe that the major impact is what Joe was saying, but there is a big concern about form-based code in that area because of what it actually limits. I believe we do have zoning already available that we could still achieve what UTA wants and achieve what the other citizens and property owners want. So luckily, like Jan says, we can put that off, but I think, Brian, you probably hit the nail on the head. That could definitely be a great way to, could be a great solution.
Well, okay, I think that's reasonable. Ann, thoughts on this, Jan?
Yeah.
I think we can,
Let's work through it.
yeah.
Then I'm going to hold off then proposing doing a resolution next time to bring ad hoc, because if the council believes there's probably really no need, if you don't change it from, it's now sitting as RA18. So if it's residential 8,000 square foot lots, then if we don't change
Whatever we do,
that-
it's going to require zoning changes.
Well,
Well, some of it down there is light manufacturing, is that correct?
yeah, see, that's the big concern I have.
Yeah,
If you remember from
you've got to
briefing
do
from
something,
last
whether you
time-
go form-based code or traditional, you have to make some changes.
Well, right now, they can put a right now, they can put a 5-story building on that industrial manufacturing, light
But they
manufacturing. They haven't, but they could tomorrow.
Whether they could or not, they haven't in
Correct.
many, many, many years.
That's right. So I'm just suggesting to you would be, as I said, I think Joe's point would be at some point in time, we need to address it. The question is, what do we want to address it? Do we want to go traditional, which means take the form-based code out of the conversation? Or do you want to basically go ahead and put the form-based code down there? And if so, then structure the form-based code that something is acceptable. That's really the two issues.
Do we have to decide that
No, no,
immediately?
no. But I don't
So
want
I say
to.
we slow down and not decide that currently.
Okay, then what I'm hearing everybody say, and I heard 3 of you say, 4 of you, I suspect, say that let's just hold off on anything with the train station at this moment, and let's reevaluate that. But I won't put an ad hoc committee resolution out there until we firm up which way we're going to go.
I think
Fair
that's
enough with
appropriate.
I think that's
Okay.
good.
Okay. Matt, anything else on the form-based code strategy? Okay, so we got a little things we have to work on that. We'll work on getting that together. I think it covered my issues. Okay, Andy, I think you got to train us.
Oh, I have.
This is an annual requirement for us to have to go through this training, and Andy just loves doing this.
I'd love to hear from Andy.
We have to do this once a year, so here we go again. Usually it doesn't take too long. Morgan's going to pass a handout along to all of you so you can follow along with me, okay? And you might want to keep it handy, too. The state legislature required that we have this training once a year. And so the Open and Public Meetings Act was passed by the state legislature, which basically is saying that cities should conduct their meetings in the open. And one of the statements said, public bodies should meet in public to do the public's business. There's a lot of publics in that one sentence. You need to know when that applies. So whenever the council convenes with a quorum present, and we've got more than 2 council members and the mayor. So if there's 3 of you, that counts. That's when it comes into play.
And the mayor, Andy?
Yeah, and the mayor, since he doesn't vote, so it's beyond the mayor. So you 3 over here could actually be talking, and that's not a public, because the mayor doesn't factor into the 3 people, okay? So 2 here or 2 here if you're talking on your own. That's not a public meeting, okay? You have to have a quorum present, which would be there'd have to be 3 council members present.
Regardless of whether the mayor is there or not.
Right,
If
right.
there are
So
3
if 2
council
of you are there and
members.
the mayor's there, doesn't come into play yet. So you'll see that sometimes on some of the committees that we have. You could actually have the mayor there and 2 council members.
But if there are 3, whether the mayor is there or not.
Right, right. So once you have 3, then these provisions of the act come in place where we have to give notice. And so what you're looking at, I put some other notes here that we don't have. So it applies to any time we have a work session or executive session. Now, executive session is just another word for a closed meeting. Planning commission meetings, certain committee meetings where we have at least 3 council members present, then we have to do that. It applies to retreats, pre-meeting conferences. If we were to have a pre-meeting conference, then it'd be applicable to that meeting also. It doesn't apply, though, to other types of things. If we go to Utah League of Cities and Towns and everybody's present there, it doesn't apply. If you're all there at a training session, we don't have to comply.
If we go to dinner.
If you go to dinner, church, fundraisers, Roy Days, any of those events, funerals, whatever, those things it doesn't apply. If we're all over at the school graduation, it doesn't apply in those situations. Doesn't apply to chance meeting. I've got chance meetings there or social gatherings, so that all comes into play. I should tell you one other thing too, to be, if I seem slower than usual, I did some neurological testing today. Just finished up, just got here in the nick of time. I called Matt, didn't know if I'd be here in time. They told me my vision is great, but I'm a little slow, so not where I should be on
That's
the
what
chart.
happens with
So,
a concussion,
yeah,
buddy.
and I can't remember exactly what that term, my cognitive ability is a little slow, so I apologize for that. Now, since all of our meetings have to be open for the public, there are exceptions to that. And, well, excuse me, let me back up a little bit. So whenever we have a meeting that has to be open to the public, which we just went through those, we've got to give that 24-hour notice prior to the meeting, unless it's an emergency meeting. Emergencies, we have to give whatever notice we reasonably can under those situations. So with our meetings, we've got our regular meetings. Those regular meetings, we do have to publish once a year. So our regularly scheduled meetings, that has to be published. And then we have our 24-hour time period that we also have to have that published within. Now, a special meeting is something that isn't regularly scheduled. So we decide to have another meeting, we have a special meeting, we've got to give a 24-hour notice in the paper. And then the other type of meeting is an emergency meeting. So the exceptions to open meetings, we can have closed meetings when we're talking about character and competency or health of individuals. And we've done that before. We can't make any final decisions in those, but typically we might have a closed meeting to discuss the termination of an employee. And if everybody in that meeting says, okay, that's the direction we need to move, typically that person will resign after that. But if not, we'd have to come into an open meeting and take an open vote. And that would be a roll call vote too. When we do have a closed meetings, collective bargaining, which we don't go through, purchase and sale of real property, so quite often we'll go into those types of, we need to come up with a negotiating strategy, so a lot of that information we don't need at that time. That can't be out in the public because that hurts our ability to get the best price that we can or get the best sale when we're trying to sell or purchase property. Security, deployment of security devices or how we'd set up security for things, that's not open to the public. That's something we can discuss in private. Investigations into criminal allegations, review of ethics, complaints, those are things that we can handle within a closed meeting. They don't have to be public. In any of those closed sessions that we go into, we can't vote. So we can't vote on ordinances, resolutions. We can't really make any final decisions. We can't interview to fill a council vacancy in those either. So that's why you'll see whenever we interview for council vacancies, it's open here. I can't say that I like that too much because if you're the sixth one, that first one doesn't have anybody to watch, but everybody else can come in and watch them go down and pick the things that they like. So, but that's just how it is. Whenever we have a closed meeting, we have to have a roll call vote to go into that closed meeting. And we have to have a quorum present when we do that. In that motion, we have to state the reason for it. So it's got to be one of those reasons that are listed. And then the location of where we have that. So typically, you won't hear me say anything about location. But in that, we have to say where the location is, which is typically our administrative conference room is where we go. We could do it here. We'd have to kick everybody out, though. So, and it's more private in there, too. You usually aren't overheard in there. And we have to have, this is a vote where we have to have at least 2/3 of the council members vote to approve it. So it's not a simple majority, but we've got to have 2/3, which would be 4 of us. These closed meetings have to be recorded and detailed minutes have to be kept. Dates, times, place of the meeting, all the council members present, and in this case, all the council members who aren't present, and that needs to be recorded. We also have to name anybody else who may be there that isn't a council person. There are exceptions, though. If we're talking about character and competency of individuals, then, or security issues, we don't have to have that recorded at all. We have the mayor sign an affidavit that we followed what we were supposed to do. We do need to know that those meetings, when we have a closed meeting, it's limited to the purpose of that meeting. So we can't go off into any other topics in there, have any other discussions. It ends there, okay? We can't approve ordinances, resolutions, and contracts in a closed meeting. Now, an interesting thing that came up, and I don't have this in here. So the law is saying that under certain circumstances, we have to have open meetings, and then we can also, under certain circumstances, have closed meetings. But what happens when an individual council member decides to talk to other people outside of that meeting? Technically, That's not illegal, actually. So the illegal part is not having discussing things in a closed meeting that you're not supposed to, or not giving proper notice for an open meeting. So if a council member does disclose something, that's not a crime, but it is an ethical violation, and it could also violate grandma. So there's another aspect where that comes, but there's nothing in the state law that says you can't go out and say this. But it comes not in a criminal aspect, but more from a civil aspect, where it could be an ethical violation, where somebody could actually, how far it went, could be removed from office. If there was an action that was taken that was in violation of the Open Meetings Act, anybody who's challenging that action, they have 90 days to file with district court. Past that time, there's nothing that can be done. Okay, so there's a 90-day time frame. The city could be liable for attorney's fees, court costs, whatever, if somebody does file suit and we're in violation of the act. And it can also be enforced by the Attorney General's office or the county attorney. Any violation of this is a Class B misdemeanor. Okay, and down here I do have disclosure of information without permission could be a violation of grandma, because typically these are private matters, and or of our Ethics Act. So that's all I have in the presentation, but if there's anything else, any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those here. And in fact, at any time, if you have any questions about how we proceed with things, what we're supposed to do, and we're always following this anyway, but if you have questions, please feel free to ask me, and if you want to ask now, that'd be great, or some other time, I'm more than happy to answer.
Council, any questions for Andy? Diane? Okay.
You can be to get.
Thanks, Mayor, Council.
Okay, thank you, Andy. That's by chance.
Yeah, because that's
You're
social.
okay. Just can't talk about city business. Okay, thank you. City manager and council report. Matt?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I have a couple of things for tonight. First off, every year the complex does a gold dig. It's where a bunch of kids jump in the pool for prizes. That's going to be on March 14th, so that's just right around the corner. Staff has released the budgets to the departments. Just want to let you know, please get with me if you have any requests for the legislative group. We'll have continuous workshops and stuff in the future, but right now the staff is just kind of working internally on those budgets.
So do you need the input from legislative body?
Just on our personal, we can always change that in the future. This is going to go on until June as well, so.
Yeah.
Did that budget include a plaque and signage for Memorial Park?
It better.
Okay, so that legislative budget is our budget. So what you need to be thinking about is if there's things that we need to get done, that we need to do, then we add that to that portion of the budget. I can talk to you about that. Typically, if you feed that to me, we'll get it all assembled, we'll send it to Matt, and Matt will infuse that. But you'll have workshops on budgets that can be brought up as well. But ultimately, we just want to make sure the legislative budget includes the city council's requirements, because it also includes Matt. He's in that legislative budget portion.
Yes, and then after that, we'll still have continuous discussions that we can add things to the city budget and even the legislative budget.
Yeah.
Speaking of sidewalks, we did get approved for a safe sidewalk grant through the state. It's for $56,250. This is an SR 97, which is 5,500-ish, between 3750 west and 3650 west. So there'll be a sidewalk going through that way. $56,000.
He's on 31 and 6, but this one's down below 3,500, where it goes on that curve going past Kent's. Yeah.
Wanted to give you a friendly reminder about the Police Awards Banquet this Thursday, actually, from 6 to 9 p.m. Hope to see you there. Tomorrow and Thursday, the city will be hosting a PIO training. I mentioned this last time. A lot of city staff will be going to that. I'm excited about it. And then wanted to also let you know that on Friday, we sent some emails out from the prior city council meeting relating to the form-based code. A lot of those emails, 16 of them came back due to spam. We're having some issues with our, not Royce City, but other spam filters were were thinking Royce City was was spam. We have since fixed that. If residents didn't get an email, please contact us. There might be some confusion with the way you wrote down the email address and stuff, but we did send something out on Friday.
Yeah, and I should indicate to you, based on this conversation, we'll do just a brief paragraph, and we'll send that, Morgan. I'll send that to you, and then we can kind of just send that out to the people who we indicated we would send an email on anything deals with form-based code dealing with the train station.
And that was all for me.
Okay, thank you. Council, anything you'd like to share with us? Anything?
Busy times, exciting
Busy.
times.
Morgan?
I have extra room in the newsletter. It needs to be out by tomorrow, but if you have any information you would like added, I have almost a half a page.
Okay, well, that brings up an interesting
Throw out a few
question.
accomplishments.
Did you,
I could do that.
did you get pictures?
Yes, she did email.
Okay, one last thing, since we're on that, it was recommended by one of our residents to suggest is that maybe, just maybe, the city council members would like to put a note inside the magazine. Any comments on whether or not you'd like to just put a message in there from a city council member?
Challenges my brain.
Why tomorrow?
No, just
Yeah,
in the
by
future.
tomorrow.
Well, think about it. Please send me a note. If you have an interest,
can't
I'd be
do it.
more than happy to either make space, either we'll just do a mayor's or we'll make
I
space.
think
but-
Diane's about ready to say she'd love to.
And if Diane.
Yeah,
love to-
actually, I would,
Okay,
just not for tomorrow.
okay. When you get back, Diane, we'll work that,
I have
okay?
actually
We'll
had a
get you in
few
there.
people recommend
Okay.
Councilman's Corner, so I think it's a great idea.
I was just gonna bring up one thing. We had our first meeting for Roy Days, and we're thinking of potential grand marshals
Oh, good.
for the Roy Days. If you residents have anybody in mind, and we're trying to come up with a theme also. So put your great minds together for a Roy Days theme or a grand marshal.
Okay,
So trying to come up with that.
Perfect.
thanks, Ann.
Okay. Anything else? Council? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mayor, I make that motion, we adjourn.
Okay.
Seconded.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Make the motion.
Thank you, we're adjourned.
We hang
I
around.
believe there's some people need some signatures. If you'd like to bring them up here, we'll get you signed in.
Okay, thanks, Diane.
Thanks, Diane. Well, we've accomplished a few things tonight.
Hey, Ann, can we send you those recommendations?
Pardon? No, you don't have anything you need to get done right away. And you'll be back, I believe, next week, is that right? Yeah, if you have any questions, you feel free to FaceTime
Hey,
my
Cannon.
phone again, but other than that.
I want to sign yours because I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Of course, thank you. Yeah.
How are you? Good. Good.
Do you need something signed?
So,
Oh, good job, because I don't.
so Dixie's, what's that deal, man? I told everybody at work, so you probably don't.
I think we got the pictures. Yeah,
Extra credit?
the letter and the thing.
You even took notes? Wow.
I work for the church, fleet of missionary vehicles.
Just got my signature.
And I told him, I said, if this kid gets on BYU's team, I might have to watch him.
How many points extra credit?
So, I would have supported you if you would have not done it, but that's pretty cool, you're going to Dixie. I would go down to some of your games, my father-in-law lives down there, so I'm down there quite a bit, so. So you know my daughter, Kylie Paul.
More than anything.
Come by the football games. I love watching them play. I'll go down there and watch you, give me an excuse to go to St. George, so. Have a good one. Did you get yours signed?
So did you get some good ideas?